So today I want to tell you a little bit about some of the meaningful first steps that I took into AI. We've seen so many incredible applications over these past few days, and some of you may be feeling the same way I do sometimes about AI, really overwhelmed. You feel like you have a really good grasp of the latest and the greatest, and then there's always another new tool, another new model. And you hear about people transforming the way that they work using AI, and ask yourself, am I really using AI the way I could and should to change the way that I lead? That's where I was around this time last year, when one conversation changed the way I thought about what AI could do to help me lead. This wasn't a huge implementation, not a big investment, not an agent, just a tool, a personal GPT trained on the way I think and the way I lead. So today I want to walk you through some of the first steps I took to make this work for me. Not because it's the best way, not because it's the only way, but because it did work for me, and maybe some of these ideas can work for you too. So why is this a good place to start? Every person in this room is the people other people come to for answers. You know that that's true. Your teams come to you. Your CEO comes to you. Your franchise partners come to you. Sometimes maybe even your kids come to you. Mine just call me about why the Wi-Fi isn't working. But the point is, leaders are expected to have answers. But then very few leaders have a place to go when they need a thought partner. Sometimes leadership can be a surprisingly lonely job. We're expected to make really smart decisions quickly, usually with incomplete information, often with competing priorities, and more than likely, no one else in the room to truly bounce an idea off of. Because as soon as we say something out loud, it's interpreted as direction. How many times have you had a needed decision sitting in your inbox that you know deserved some real thinking time, but you knew you wouldn't have that dedicated block of time to get to it today? That's often my reality, but now I have a tool to help. Most AI tools promise to help us do things faster, write faster, summarize faster, automate faster, but very few are designed to help leaders think better. And that was the challenge that started this experiment for me. So I started asking myself a simple question. How could AI help me think more clearly, communicate faster, pressure test my decisions, and scale my leadership? Not replace my leadership, but sharpen it. Because leadership is not just information, it's perspective. And it doesn't understand your voice, your leadership style, your decision filters, and your judgment. AI should not replace leadership. It should only amplify it. And that's when I started experimenting with what I now affectionately call Kimbot. So I built a custom GPT and trained it on how I think and how I lead. My initial goals were to have something to help me pressure test my ideas, to refine messaging, to challenge my assumptions, and to accelerate clarity so that we could move faster. Not to outsource my critical thinking, just to make it better. This wasn't about building an actual robot. It was about building a mirror that reflects how I think and helps me move to decisive action faster. So let me show you a little bit of what this really looks like. So in the middle of a busy day, I received an analysis that I had been anxiously awaiting. In the past, this would have sat in my inbox for hours, or let's be real, probably days, until I had a dedicated block of time to really think through it, break it down, and decide what we needed to do next. So now I can just drop this into Kimbot. I give it a very simple prompt because I've defined my more complicated prompts up front. So I can drop something simple like this. Just paste in the email from the analyst and say, based on what you know about me and our 2026 goals, what should I do next? And here's the obviously truncated response, but these are the kinds of answers I get. It's not generic because I've trained it on our 2026 goals, our 3-year picture, how I think about data, the kinds of questions that I ask when I receive an analysis. So instead of sitting for hours or days, I quickly had a clear picture of things to do next. I immediately had initial questions back to the analyst so she could keep moving. I had thought starters that I could discuss with my leadership team in our meeting that afternoon. I had initial things I could be thinking about and mulling over as time allowed. So instead of preparing for next week's meeting, I was ready that day. Instead of waiting on me to take action, the team could keep moving. Hours saved, days saved, time to action accelerated, and gains compounded. It's dramatically changed our agility as an organization and how quickly we can go to market with new ideas. Here's another. I used to spend way too much time writing a monthly marketing update to our franchisees. Our team would put together a really great and detailed rollout guide of all of our promotions and initiatives, but I always sent a high-level strategic update along with it. Now, I can utilize my personal GPT to get way ahead on that. So I started training it. I dropped in months and months of these that I had written myself, along with the rollout guides that had informed them. Then I started dropping those same rollout guides and asking it to generate it in my voice, with the strategic initiatives I would pull out, with the strategic framing I would use, and in the voice and the way that I would speak and write. At first, it was not good. But we went back and forth with what it had gotten wrong. We helped refine the rules for next time. And then it started to get it really right. Now I drop these rollout guides in and I get a polished draft that's probably 90 to 95% of the way there. I make a few small tweaks and it's out the door. And then I'm back focused what I need to be doing, leading my team and leading us forward, not summarizing things to communicate out. My last example is decision support. So we were in a planning meeting where we had a huge brainstorm and brain dump of all the things we would love to know from our customers about what they thought about our recent menu initiative. Tons of questions, huge brain dump that normally would have taken a long time to filter through, decide what was most important, decide next steps to take. Instead of doing that, I was able to drop the entire transcript from that meeting into the personal GPT and say, based on what you know about our goals, about what we're trying to accomplish with our menu initiative, what is the most important things for us to follow up with our customers about? And then, instead of waiting days or weeks to filter through that, collaborate on creating a survey, go back and forth with edits, that afternoon, I had a polished survey instrument ready to edit, and we got it out the next day. Now we're already actively implementing a lot of the things we learned from that survey, instead of going back and forth internally about how to execute it. Now, these are just a few examples of the ways that I use this. It's also a great way for me to talk through tough conversations I need to have with employees, to make sure that I'm looking at it from an objective standpoint, taking any emotion out of how I'm feeling. It helps me prepare for nuanced franchisee conversations, make sure that I'm looking at it through their operator's lens, and that none of my judgment is clouded by our own internal initiatives. I even use it for board prep. I drop in our decks, I drop in our notes and our transcripts from the meeting. And then as we're coming up to the next one, I help it filter and say, what are the things I probably need to make sure I'm ready to answer in an objective? What are the things that I need to be prepared to drill deeper into? What are the things I probably can just keep super high level and keep moving? So it's a great tool to make sure that I'm coming to that clear thinking much faster. And that's really the point. This is not about perfect prompts, and it's not about perfect answers. It's about better thinking faster. For us, a day sooner that we can take action is a day sooner that we can drive results. And at the end of the day, that's what I'm paid to do. So why is this different than any other LLM? Well, most AI tools are either trained on the internet or on your company data. And we all know that everything out on the internet is true, right? Your custom GPT becomes powerful when it's trained on you, your voice, your leadership, your judgment. So when Tammy asked me if I would come and share my story today about what I had built, I was racking my brain to say, well, what would I share? Like, how would I communicate? Like, how I got here. It was so much trial and error and back and forth. But when I looked back and thought through it, I realized that it was really a pretty simple 4-step process to get there. So take a look at this diagram. I'm a marketer, so I think visually and I think in slides. So I had to put this on a slide and in a visual to think myself through how I got there. I tried a lot of things, but then I realized it was really just a pattern of inputs. And at the center is leadership. Your leadership. The goal was not necessarily a smarter AI. It was just an AI that understood me. And once that clicked, it became a lot simpler. So I'll quickly walk you through these 4 steps. First, you need to define your leadership code, your values, your decision style, your tone. For me, some of those things that it looks like is standardization before scale, exceptions accumulate friction, clarity precedes speed, and one of the most important for me, that every major initiative must tie to a business outcome. This has been an incredible tool to help filter out some of the shiny things that we would chase. Put it in, I talk about it, and it will gently remind me that maybe that's not where we should be spending our time based on the goals that we've set. Second, you really need to identify your primary leadership use cases. Is it strategy? Is it communication? Is it decision-making? Is it reflection? You can't do it all and perfect it all at once. Choose your top priorities and then iterate. And then the better it gets, the faster you'll be able to scale to more and more use cases. Step 3, and one of the most important, is feeding it your thinking. Presentations you've created, email threads that you've written, strategy decks, transcripts. Show it both your writing voice and your speaking voice of how you communicate. Share with it, for me, our 2026 marketing strategy, our company goals, our quarterly and annual EOS rocks. When the system understands your work and what you're trying to achieve, the responses start to actually sound like you. As part of this, one of the most important things that I've been able to create is a mandatory writing voice and thinking style guide. I refine this often to make sure that it truly sounds like me. So I have rules. No buzzword stacking, no fluffy PR adjectives. Use semicolons instead of M dashes. I'm team serial comma. You might even see in there, puns and dad jokes acceptable, because I want this to actually sound like me. And then step 4, tell it your story. You heard Erin talk this morning about having your AI interview you. Make it know you, your leadership lessons, your career moments, your perspective. Once it understands how you became you, everything really changes. This was a surprisingly meaningful exercise for me. You'll be really surprised what you learn about yourself and how you got to where you are. Now, the impact was immediate. Clearer, faster decisions that started to permeate, not just at work, but at home. And then even my family wanted in on the action. Soon, my 15-year-old was asking Kimbot to mediate disagreements about video games, and for some reason, accepting the results. It was incredible. My custom GPT didn't just make me a better leader at work. It made me a better leader at home and in life. So my advice to you is simple. Don't overthink this. Take a small step to start today to think about how you can utilize this, not just to make your company better, but how to make yourself better as a leader. Don't just automate tasks. Scale your judgment. Because I believe that the leaders who win in the AI era will not be the ones who automate the most tasks. And as leaders responsible for AI adoption within our companies, I believe that empowering, clarifying, and amplifying our own leadership is key to successful change management. As people see you operate with more clarity and speed, they will want to do the same, and it will lower the fear factor of it replacing them and make them realize it can just make them a better them. Because today's AI does not replace leadership, but it can reflect it, sharpen it, amplify it, and maybe even just settle a few Fortnite disputes while you're at it. So I hope you'll join me on this journey. This is a link to my LinkedIn if you'd like to continue the conversation, or if you're doing this well for yourself. I only made it to this point because of conversations that we had on how I could think differently, on what I could do better. I was one of the people who went to Aaron's boot camp and iterated and saw what I could build, moved on to more advanced use cases. So if you do reach out, please drop a note in there. Say, here's what I'm doing that I think I'm really winning. Or here's what I'd love to hear if you've battled or gone back and forth with. So I'd love to hear from you guys, and I'm happy to take any questions. We have a few minutes.
We talked about security earlier. You talked about the tool that you did it, or if it's through the company, how is this secure? What happens if you leave?
So Tammy asked, well, what about security? So I did build my initial custom GPT within the confines of our company instance. I do, however, I try to keep a lot of company data out of my personal GPT. The things that I do that are more for the company, that are more about our business, that contain more of our company data, I do within the regular confines. And I really do make this more about scaling my own personal thought process and clarity. And the really important part, and we talked about it earlier, is making those summaries at the end, exporting that and continuing to build your library of knowledge. And I do maintain that for my own self so that it can be portable. And then I did end up building my own personal leadership instance. That's Kimbot Home, not Kimbot Pro. And that is entirely about my personal leadership, about how I want to progress as a leader, about how I show up within the industry, and how I lead at home. And that is completely void of any information that has to do with the company.
I'm just curious if you were able to get other people on your leadership team to adopt like your CEO.
Okay, so the question was if I've gotten other people on my team to adopt this, and the answer is yes. So I did extend and invite my marketing and technology leadership team to be able to access my Pro version, my Kimbot Pro version. And it's actually been fantastic because they use it as a decision filter before they bring things to me. And so they're able to query it with questions like, what would Kim say about this? What should I be thinking about that I'm not? Where maybe am I feeling a little too emotional about some feedback that I got? And it's been really fantastic because now when they bring me ideas, instead of being maybe a quarter, 30% of the way there, they're bringing me things that are 75% of the way there because they've been able to interact with it as a thought partner as well with a lens of my strategic view. So it's been really amazing. I've been pretty judicious about who I extend that to, but it's definitely getting more people within the company excited about using AI and seeing the speed to clarity and action that we've been able to use within our department. Yes? Oh, hello, Casey. Okay, great. So Casey asked how I'm making sure that it's not an echo chamber and that I'm reflecting the views of our operators and franchisees. So that's really important. And again, it all goes back to the inputs. So one of the most important things to put in is those inputs that I'm getting from franchisees. So I'll feed in full emails from franchisees, and then I will always put back in what my response was. Or I'm working with it of how I want to respond to it. And I'm saying, for each of the things that they are bringing up, how does that fit in to what we're working on? Or help me evaluate the important points of their objection, and which of these should I consider as something that could potentially adjust the way that we do our approach? Or how can I most strategically and tactfully communicate it back to them so it doesn't feel like a no, but it feels like a here's why we're not going to go that direction at this time. So it really is all about feeding that in and saying, how can I balance this perspective with my perspective? Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you all. Again, thank you to this community, and a special thanks to Aaron Newton, who really has been a huge mentor for me on this guide. I also will not shill for his boot camp, but go to his boot camp if you haven't done that. He's really been a selfless advocate for making sure that we advance as an industry into AI in a way that truly does meet each of us in our spot that we are on our personal journey. So thank you for having me.